It was a quiet Friday morning in Stalybridge. Ellie Mortin had a planned lunch meeting with her friend. She arrived just after 11, expecting a lift into Mossley. But inside the flat, something wasn't right. Courtney Larkin was on the floor, preparing something with quiet focus. They didn't hear the officers outside. By 12:05 p.m., the door was gone. And what police found inside was more than just a few snapbags. This is the story of Courtney Larkin and Ellie Mortin, and how a lift to lunch turned into a £123,000 cocaine bust. Courtney Larkin and Ellie Mortin looked like any other young mums trying to get by, both from Stalybridge, Greater Manchester, and raising children on their own. And both, at least until the day of the raid, had no criminal record. Courtney Larkin was 25 years old, single mother of 2, but those children were no longer with her. Reports confirmed that she had lost them to the care system. In the months leading up to her arrest, she had been trying to piece her life back together, moving in with her father, reconnecting with her 9-year-old son. But behind closed doors, things were far from stable. She had turned to cocaine during a low point. But it didn't stop there. Ellie Mortin, just 21 at the time, had her own challenges. A mother to a 2-year-old daughter, she was working part-time as a cleaner at a nearby Hollywood bowl. The rest of her time was spent co-parenting with the help of her parents, one an NHS nurse, the other a firefighter. She had no known history with drugs, no criminal ties, and no sign she was involved in anything more than childcare and cleaning shifts. Neither of them fit the profile of high-level traffickers. There were no flashy cars, no lavish spending, just 2 women keeping to themselves. But over time, Larkin in particular had drifted into something far more serious. What started as a coping mechanism became something structured, something profitable. The raid that would expose all of it was still days away, but in the weeks leading up to it, the signs were already forming. Only no one was looking close enough. It didn't start with gangs. There was no network above her, no one forcing her hand. According to evidence presented in court, Courtney Larkin set it all up herself. Police later uncovered the structure. A personal drugs hotline operated from her mobile. But we will talk about it later in this video. From 8th April to 6 May 2022, less than a month, Larkin used it to supply and coordinate Class A drug deals across Greater Manchester. She sourced the cocaine through a local dealer, handled the cutting, portioned it herself into snapbags, and arranged delivery runs using her own vehicle. The scale wasn't massive by cartel standards or mid-level drug dealers, but the method was efficient. Police described her operation as structured, clean, and quietly consistent, and it made her a target. What led her to start remains tied to her personal struggles. Court mitigation described how she had spiraled into addiction first, then into dealing. She kept her circle tight. But behind the walls of that Stalybridge flat, she was moving thousands of pounds in crack cocaine. And by the time police moved in, the bags were already packed. It was 11 a.m. on Friday, the 6th of May, 2022. Court evidence later revealed what Mortin walked into. Larkin wasn't dressed to leave. She wasn't looking for her coat or keys. Instead, she was on the floor, cutting white powder, weighing it out, and packing it into small snapbags. A mirror sat in front of her, along with digital scales, blades, and baggies, all indicating she was mid-operation. Mortin was shocked, but she didn't walk out. According to the prosecution, she asked if they could go, but Larkin insisted she needed to finish first. What happened next would seal both their futures. Mortin, by her own account, agreed to help. She stayed, sat beside her friend, and for the next hour, the two of them worked together in silence, preparing Class A drugs for the street. Some of the bags were already laid out, but that wasn't all. In the corner of the room, there was something else, but we will talk about it later. What neither of them saw or heard was the team assembling outside. The clock was ticking, and at 12:05 p.m., it would stop. At precisely 12:05 p.m, officers from Greater Manchester Police executed a search warrant at the flat on Stonecliff Terrace. What they found inside confirmed weeks of intelligence, but even they weren't expecting the scene they walked into. Courtney Larkin and Ellie Mortin were both on the living room floor, surrounded by the tools of drug preparation. It was quiet, no shouting, no attempt to run. Just two women caught in the middle of their operation. The center of the operation was a low makeshift table between them. On it sat 37 individual wraps of crack cocaine, already measured, sealed, and ready for the street. But the real find was in the corner. Behind them, slightly out of sight, was an Aldi bag for life. Inside, there was over 1.185 kilograms of crack cocaine, a full block still to be broken down. Police valued the entire haul at £123,000, not small-time dealing or personal use. This was a bit larger quantity. According to Mortin's legal defense, she had no knowledge of the Aldi bag. She saw only what was in front of her, the table, the powder, and her friend mid-task. The entire setup was described by officers as an evidential paradise. Nothing had been hidden. Everything they needed was in plain view. Drugs, equipment, packaging, scales, and both suspects. They were arrested on the spot and taken to Ashton-under-Lyne police station. The drugs were seized, so were their phones. Outside, neighbors likely had no idea what had just been pulled from the flat. Two single mothers, and a £123,000 cocaine operation shut down in less than 60 seconds. Back at Ashton-under-Lyne police station, both women were processed and questioned. Neither gave any answers. They remained silent throughout their interviews, offering no explanation, no denial, and no detail. It was a standard no-comment response from both. But it wasn't the end of the investigation. Their phones were seized during the raid and became central to the next stage of the investigation. Within days, Greater Manchester Police's technical teams had cracked them. The contents of Courtney Larkin's device revealed the scale of what they were dealing with. For nearly a month, from 8th April to 6th May 2022, she had been running a drugs line. This was no side hustle. It was structured. Texts linked her directly to multiple drug deals. Location data placed her at handover points. There were conversations with buyers, arrangements for delivery, and evidence of coordination with others. She wasn't just handling supply, she was running distribution as well. The phone also helped confirm what officers found during the raid, that the drugs weren't for personal use, but part of a street-level Class A operation. Mortin's phone told a different story. Forensics found no evidence that she had been involved in drug dealing before the day of the raid. No communications with buyers, no history of supply, just presence. She had entered that flat to collect a lift and ended up packing Class A wraps. Still, the law made little distinction at that moment. Both were charged with possession with intent to supply. But the depth of their involvement and the decisions that brought them there would come into focus later, in court. At Minshall Street Crown Court, the weight of evidence against Courtney Larkin and Ellie Mortin was already clear. A block of crack cocaine, the 37 snapbags, and the digital trail. All of it had already been laid out. Both women pleaded guilty to possession with intent to supply Class A drugs. No trial was needed. The courtroom's focus shifted quickly to context and consequence. The defense offered background we've already covered about Larkin losing 2 children to the care system. Her solicitor described a life marked by trauma, mental health issues, and drug dependency, all of which spiraled into the operation police dismantled that Friday afternoon. For Mortin, her legal team highlighted her limited role. She was described as naive, easily influenced, and shocked by what she'd walked into. The court heard how she'd only intended to get a lift to lunch, and how her decision to stay that day would cost her far more than she ever imagined. Beyond the personal accounts, the judge returned to the bigger picture. He made it clear that while both women had faced hardship, the impact of Class A drugs stretched beyond personal trauma. He said, "Let's be clear, these drugs in particular cause misery. The prosecution reinforced that Larkin wasn't merely in possession. She had structured and managed the street-level supply line. This wasn't a favor, it was business. Both women sat silently as the court confirmed their guilt. The only question left was how long each would serve and how their roles would be reflected in sentencing. The sentencing came on a Monday, December 12, 2022. Courtney Larkin received the heavier sentence, 4 years and 11 months. The court acknowledged her personal struggles, but it didn't change the nature of her crime. Ellie Mortin's sentence told a different story. The court accepted that Mortin had not planned or profited from the cocaine operation, but her decision to stay and help bag cocaine had brought her within reach of serious charges. 2 years imprisonment, suspended for 20 months. She avoided immediate custody, but it came with conditions. She was ordered to complete 150 hours of unpaid work, attend 40 rehabilitation activity days, and wear an electronic tag enforcing a nightly curfew from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. Both women left the courtroom with their futures altered. One facing prison, the other is facing months of restriction. Neither would walk away untouched. What do you think? Did the sentencing reflect their roles? Please drop your thoughts in the comment section. And if you want more real UK crime stories like this, subscribe, turn on notifications. There's always another case to uncover.